You ever sit down and record a video, and then after 30 minutes of your recording, you realize that at some point, stop recording your audio? Yeah, that's me. I hate it here. Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're actually going to be going over your feedback yet again. I recently have been playing a lot of Elden Ring, and though that got its DLC, and apparently that DLC has some mixed feelings on how people feel about it, even though I think it's one of the best DLCs ever released. Um, and of course, with the idea from my wife Skulls, I thought I'd take a look at our reviews over on Steam. Now, recent reviews are set to mix at the moment, which is pretty interesting actually, considering we had probably our best release of not only story content but actual in-game content. So interesting to think that these are currently mixed. I kind of assumed that the all reviews would be closer to mixed, but they're not. Basically, this isn't what I thought it would be, and I'm curious about what that feedback is going to be. But before we jump into that, if you guys are new here, as always, my name is Chrono. I prepare PSO2 content. Would much appreciate subscribers. We're going towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into these. So, like I said, these are kind of different than what I've expected them to be. We have mostly positive for all reviews, which is insane to me. I figured this would be kind of closer to like the mixed, and then recent reviews are mixed at 58%. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I do have to kind of, like, you guys probably heard in the intro, I did already record this video, and at some point it stopped recording my audio, which massively sucks. I'm not a big fan of that one at all. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to try to give as close to my original takes on the feedback that I reviewed, but I've already looked through a lot of the stuff and it is pretty interesting. Some of it is what I expected. Others are, it's kind of all over the place. So we're going to talk about a few things here. And you guys, actually my stats, yes, I have 7,000 hours on this game, 7.9K. And that was only counting my Steam time. Of course, this game was on the Microsoft Store before that. As well as I have multiple characters in game, and I also play on JP. So I'm over 10K hours in PSO2 since its release. So it's definitely, how can I put this? It's definitely something I have a lot of opinions on, as I'm a huge Phantasy Star fan. I've been for a very long time. I don't always remember everything exactly correct. I can remember my experiences and my enjoyment of the game. So I think I'm going to go ahead and bring it to the table overall. And not all my friends that played this game like it, as you can see. Some that recommend this game that don't play it anymore, and others who don't recommend this game that I know still play it. So interesting enough, it can go, it's pretty divisive. It's all over the place. So let's go ahead and roll on down the reviews and let's talk about it. So there's a few reviews that I did want to go ahead and go through. There was one that's pretty long that I'm going to try to get through. I might just clip note it a little bit because it was quite a long read. But maybe I'll go through it like, instead of like, you know, reading through it and then giving my opinion, I'm gonna go through it and then kind of just give my opinions back to back. But there's all different types of reviews. So we're gonna go into this one. It looks like it's from a global player, and this one is from a JP vet, someone who played on the JP servers like myself. So we're gonna go through both of these, and then just some other stuff on the side. So let's jump into this. This is most helpful review in the past 30 days. Interesting. All right, so this is posted on May 25th. The new Genesis update to PSO2 was quite possibly one of the single worst things they could have done to this franchise in the community that PSO2's initial global launch has fostered. This is extraordinarily overbaked. No, it's not even close. But I understand how you feel that way. The game used to be about blazing through linear dungeons at lightning fast speeds, blowing up hundreds of monsters with your buddies, with events happening here and there to spice up at the run, or spice up each run. At the end, you would get a boss to style on or struggle with, depending on how good you were with your gear, how good you and your gear were. Sort of correct. It depends on if you could keep up with people blazing through the game itself at the time. With the size of the dungeons, you could very easily fall behind a lot of players. I know myself specifically, I would usually slow down when playing with someone newer because it was easy to just smash through everything and no one got a chance to do anything most of the time. A lot of times enemies were either extraordinarily like just super health sinks, like they had insane amounts of health, or they were made of paper and it was no fun to kill them because you would just kind of smash through them. It was almost nothing. So like sort of, yeah, yeah, I guess. It was great. The vibes were fun. Everything could move as quickly as you wanted to. No, levels were fast, depending on the level. Gear was cool, and updates to the game were free and self-frequent. On global, absolutely. Not normally. This was the global release of the game. The global release of the game was 8 years of content mashed into literally a year. Updates were frequent because they were required to get all the content out before NGS released. New fights, sets, classes, and events were constantly, we constantly got fun things to try. Yes, because we got new events in between the seasonal events. The seasonal events were out, and then they fit in the events that they normally would have had available to us in the mix to make sure that global players had access to essentially everything before, of course, NGS release. So yes, absolutely. New fights, classes. I mean, classes were kind of like a throw up. We really didn't get a whole lot of new classes. We got access to most of the classes from the very get-go. With being, of course, so 1, 2, 3, an extra 3, and 2 more, and a third one, so that's 9, and then 4 more at the end. So 13, I think, if that's the right count. I might be missing one. But we got the first 9 to start with. Then we got the next one shortly after. We got the next one, our next 2 after that, and then the final one near the end. So yes, over the course of a year, we did get technically 4 new classes to play. So yeah, it was breakneck. It was really fast. People were looking forward to NGS reveal. Not only did we get to play the original, but in not too much time, we would get to play a new game just like this with the original issues ironed out wholly. This is one of the very common misconceptions of MMOs, unfortunately. We would love to think that the original game into a new MMO would be just the original game, but better, just more things. Just take all the problems that existed previously and give us a new game. That's almost never the case. And this isn't just Phantasy Star, this is just MMOs in general. Usually MMOs are a new idea. They're trying something out different, they're trying something out new, not just making the same thing they had beforehand, because the question would be, then why are you making a new game overall? What tends to happen in most situations is the new game does a lot of new things. It keeps some things consistent across games, but in a lot of cases, compared to a completed and finished MMO, it is a step back. It is a walk back on what previously existed. So I want that, but no, that's not how new MMOs tend to work. This is the case between every Phantasy Star game. This has been the case between Final Fantasy MMOs, between 11 and 14. Heck, this is the case between you guys follow Dragon Ball games, Dragon Ball Xenoverse. This was an issue as well, and people are even talking about getting a new Xenoverse game, and they've just continued to support Xenoverse 2, where a lot of people who do still play Xenoverse 2 are like, please just keep supporting this game, because that's just not how new MMOs work out, or new live service style games tend to work out in most situations. It came out, and it immediately became obvious that it was a downgrade in essentially every way imaginable. It wasn't, and you actually contradict this later on. But yes, it is going to feel like a downgrade because a lot of new ideas pop up. Things start from the very beginning because new systems are in place and new development happens. Mechanically speaking, the combat became much slower comparatively to some of the last classes in the game. Yeah, it was a bit slower for sure. The scale also became much bigger, so some of the things became more methodic, and they did slow some things down. Peculiarity of the original was timing mechanic that improved your damage in a weird way. And in a weird way, the flow of everything you did. So as long as you went with the timing, one move would flow into another, even dodges and dashes. I think they really just played I feel like they mostly played a Scion class. I couldn't be, maybe I'm wrong about this, but yeah, for Scions, 100%, it did kind of feel like everything had flowed. But for a lot of classes, no, you didn't have proper dashes. You didn't have step counters. You did use the just attack system is what they're referring to with their timing mechanic, but this is not a thing that is always the case, right? Like, so just an idea of the whole timing mechanic thing. This is something that has been a thing since way back in Blue Burst, where back then, I could say Phantasy Star Online, I'll say Phantasy Star Online just in general. But back then, if you didn't time your attacks, you didn't get the follow-up attack. You just wouldn't, like if you just spammed the button, you would just not get anything other than your first normal attack or your first attack. In a sense, because a lot of times there were only normal attacks, there weren't photon arts. But you would just get your normal attack and that was it. And then moving into PSU, that changed, where there was no timing mechanic mixed in at the very beginning. You just attacked, and eventually they did come out with a timing mechanic that you would have to time things properly to increase your damage. However, you would still get the damage even if you didn't use the timing. Then going into NGS, I'm sorry, into PSO2, they had that mechanic still, but there was like a circle that would pop up. And it's funny because between each mechanic, people talked about how like it changed so dramatically and how the original one was better. Like old school purists were like, hey, look, if you didn't time it right, you didn't get your attack. And then PSU, they were like, yo, there was no pop-up. You had to know your animation timing to actually get the extra damage. And then now PSO2 is like, hey, you had to actually go with the proper animation and the timing because it caused an overall flow of things. And NGS is like, yeah, we just got rid of all of it. They're like, hey, it's gone now, which I personally like the PSO2 base mechanic because it made things a bit more methodic to your movement. It actually slowed combat down for the player, not necessarily for the enemy. And enemies got pretty ridiculous because of what some things the player got access to later on in the game. So I do agree with that, but NGS's original feel felt like base PSO2 episode 2, 3, going into episode 4 timing when it came to speed as far as the player was, but with like a step past it. So like between episode like 3 to 5-ish, which is a pretty big gap, but those who played around that time will understand what I mean. This was removed. You just attack as you please, and those attacks feel awkwardly stiff. I feel like some attacks did feel stiff at first, but they're mostly okay. They feel a lot similar to what they used to feel like. Like you're not allowed to really build your combos as freely as you were before. You weren't allowed to build your combos freely. Now, the normal attack system previously, I think, was better because it did combo consistently, where you would PA normal and get your third normal attack. That was definitely better. But the whole combo system, it was mostly like you weren't building your combos as freely as you were previously. What you were doing primarily was taking advantage of a skill on a subclass that players used to use. It's very common you would use Hunter as your subclass because not only did it give you defensive utility, it also gave you unconditional damage, as well as access to, was it Hunter or was it Fighter back then? Crap. I think Hunter gave you access to something. Fighter might have been the one that gave you the combo stuff. You didn't sub Fighter. Was it Hunter? I'm sorry, you're gonna have to correct me in the comments. I don't remember exactly, but yes, there was a portion where you started to use combo skills because if you would use one skill into the next skill would do more damage. So you would use basically a setup skill and then you would use a skill that you would go for damage on, basically creating a combo. But they weren't really built. You didn't really flow into attacks themselves. Certain attacks just didn't work with others and they looked very awkward to use and very stiff overall. Over time, it got much better later on with things like crafts and then new PAs, but like it also caused a lot of PAs to fall into obscurity to never be seen or used again. On top of that, every class basically went from having a moveset so big that you couldn't really use it all at once. Yes and no. It was a moveset so big you couldn't use it all at once, and most of it was completely useless. There was only specific skills that were actually very useful. For most classes, it was you used maybe 3 to 4 actual PAs in most situations. Having 3 skills that are not your normal attacks. 4. And this is the last 30 days and it's May. We have 4 PAs. We've had 4 PAs for a long time now, actually. So it's 4 technically, and that's actually just perfect as far as time or the amount of PAs go. You don't want a ton of PAs because if you get a ton of PAs, they overwrite your original PAs, and some people may like those PAs. And though it is exciting to get new skills and new abilities, I would much prefer they evolve the abilities we have. That way we're not just stuck with the useless overall bloat of people just using the wrong thing because they don't know any better. So I just overall disagree with that completely. Yeah, okay. They gave us sprint to move around with, but previously we had movement skills that were much faster, so this feels like a bit of a downgrade, sadly. So this is perspective. We have substantially larger zones than we previously had, and while that sprint is faster, we have bigger ground to cover, so it feels slower. The thing about this is you didn't just get skills to move with. You had to take whatever movement skills you had, and they were not made equal. This made some classes really bad at movement, while others were really good. And now JP got around this because they had access to a mobile game called PSO2NGS, giving them access to a specific katana called the Asagiri katana, which allowed them to move very quickly. Basically, everyone could use this PA, this skill, and this was the best form of movement in the entire game. You would hot weapon swap and then use that skill for movement and then swap weapons back again. This made it so everyone had to have them, and it was very important to use it for movement, and it would guarantee take up a spot on your palette. And if you weren't a fan of that movement type, you were stuck. Some classes, of course, had their own movement tech that was faster, or that was either faster or just as fast, so they could use them. But for everyone else, you were Asakiri Katana. And when it came to global, they didn't get it. So some classes just didn't play well at all. And this being a global review, they probably just weren't aware of that. There were certain classes that just didn't have good movement tech. You were just stuck behind everyone else, and it felt pretty bad to do overall. So yeah, this is just perspective. Another huge pain point are the areas you play in. Instead of giving you little dungeons to go through with bosses, resources, with many events to them, you are now asked to run around open world with a few random points of interest. Combat zones combat only happens in areas designated combat zones. Gathering points and gathering zones, they don't really mix any longer. And the combat areas in particular are boring, being open spaces with monster spawns. You run in circles, kill monsters, dedicated AoE spells of your class, repeat this. So this is no different than base PSO2. I know it seems different because it's open world versus like specific zones, but base PSO2 was just combat related quests and exploration zones. This is combat zones and gathering zones or exploration zones. And in base PSO2, they were just procedurally generated that you would run in a circle. In NGS, they're just fields that effectively, when you start getting good at farming, you just run in a circle. The major difference is this thought process of you only doing combat and combat zones just is completely incorrect. Has been since PSO2. You did combat in both zones. It depended upon what you were farming and if at that point in time that farm was better. There are times that combat zones have been the better farm, and there are times that exploration zones were the better farm depending upon what was going on in the game at that time or what content released. So yeah, no, you just kind of went in a circle anyway. And using your designated AoE spell of your class to repeat this, yeah, you did that in base PSO2 as well. Though you were more of a dense ball of killing because everyone had only one circle to go in. I believe they called it Guru Guru quests, if I remember that correctly. It's just you ran in a circle over and over again. In NGS, you essentially do the same thing, but you just have to decide your circle. It's something that players have done for a while now whenever they're farming exploration zones. The varieties also died down terribly. Previously would enter dungeon specific set of monsters and visuals, sure, but they were short and randomized. You did what you felt like. I agree with everything except for this last part. You didn't do what you felt like, you did what was most effective. Those who did what they felt like usually were like, people would be like, yo, what are you doing? This is kind of like an extra bit of like kind of nothing in this content. But yeah, I agree with the rest of this. Variety did die down quite a bit, as it does with new games. Unfortunately, it takes some time for them to build up different, tile sets and things like that, but there's quite a bit of it now. With the specific set of monsters and visuals, yep. Sure, they were randomized, or they were short and randomized, 100%. That's actually what I disliked about these, is they were just randomized. I missed PSU's style of just doing different dungeons, going through different types of dungeons and different zones, and fighting, semi-randomized like encounters is what I enjoyed. With NGS though, areas have been assigned a loot of a certain type. No, hasn't been, or it was for a while, very briefly. This has changed and had been changed even at the time of the release of this review. Melee will drop in this place, range drop in this place. Nope, nothing. And you farm and or level in one area for a long time, which felt really grating to me personally. I don't know if you farmed and leveled back when that was the thing to do, like back in Alio, but this hasn't been a thing for a very, very long time. You farm money in one zone because people finally found the better zone to farm money in. Players have solved the best way to farm money. And that's actually still a thing in base PSO2. There's one quest you farm for pretty much everything. And that became a thing when it was updated. That would be Cradle. But that's pretty much how it was. Like certain loot only dropped in certain areas when it came to base PSO2, and you farm that loot or that zone for that specific piece of loot. But it was kind of everything, just like it is in NGS as well. But yes, you only farm money really in like one or two spots, and I agree that needs to be more widely ranged to the rest of the game. I really, really appreciate it if we weren't just farming index space. I want them to start upgrading and changing zones so we're forced into different zones, and they all are effective money farms. That way you aren't stuck with the same zone over and over again. Force some variety, The point, of course, is to make a modern PSO. Yes, this has been an old game at this point, absolutely. But the way in which they went about it is not just disappointing, but also confusing. No, this is expected, in my opinion. This is pretty much exactly what happens. You try a bunch of new stuff, you take some of the things from old, you iterate on, and you listen to your player base. We got prettier graphics. We have gliding and sprinting in open areas. All right. in open areas. All that is cool and all, but not if it becomes the just much worse game. So this contradicts, where is it? Hang on one second. Yeah, so this basically just contradicts the base first statement. And then came the update, and immediately became obvious that it was a downgrade in essentially every way imaginable. But we just talked about, we got a prettier game, better graphics, better movement, open world, things of that sort. So this is where I think is a little bit confused, and this is where it's, and I'm pointing these out specifically for another reason I'm going to explain more. This isn't just like hating on this individual person, but this is more about feedback itself. So there's more to this. Just hang in there, guys. What is even the point of releasing an update? What is even the point of releasing it as an update to the old PSO2? It's not. It is effectively a new game. It was completely a new game that was just tied to the original. It basically was what PSO2 was to PSU, but with the proper amount of time frame between them, because there were going to be separate games. Wouldn't just limit what they were able to do from the start. No, this is, so here's the thing, right? If they didn't do NGS the way they did, they would have killed the global community player base immediately, because base PSO2 had announced NGS without announcing it as NGS. Way earlier on, there was a trailer for the class Luster, along with whatever new was coming out, and they said right then, not episode 7. At this point, we had gotten episode 6, we'd gotten the storyline and things like that. We didn't know what was coming up next. It was like the game was finished, like we had just completed another major era of the storyline, and they released not episode 7. And we're like, what does that mean? That was them at that time already having NGS in the works. That's what I'm like, that's already working on it at that point in time. So it's been a minute. So it was set to be a separate game. It wouldn't limit anything. They had to do this the way to make sure that they could keep the current game going as much as possible moving into the new game, because hey, it's a free-to-play game, and if players have the thought process of a new game coming out as they're playing this one, they're just going to drop the current one. That's pretty normal. So I think personally this was mostly a marketing strategy to make it so they could actually make a new game without just completely tanking the original. And I'm actually glad they did that, because dude, base PS2 is one of the best times I ever had with PSO2. I'm sorry, base PS2 Global was the best time I ever had with PSO2. The idea to have cosmetics characters from previous versions still working in NGS is cool and all, but why did this have to be a thing? I explained why it had to be a thing. It's very important. Now the game is plagued by ancient cosmetics that look terrible, though. Agreed. Though I doubt Sega cares much about this, since they will roll out another terrible looking promotional outfit every other week. I don't know if this contradicts itself, and I have the same, like, maybe I'm just too three-head for this one, but also, when we don't get fashion, people get upset. We just have gotten fashion consistently, even in base PSO2. There were 2 times the entire time that, like, so we usually get a scratch every single week. Back in base, there were twice ever that I can remember off the top of my head that there was a week we didn't get a new scratch and everyone lost their mind. They got super upset. Even when some of the collaborations and scratches were absolutely stupid. Like, they were basically packs on Steam or on the Microsoft store, which I thought was terrible, and it really sucked. And they weren't actual, like, regular AC scratches that players could buy stuff for in game. It was bad. And whenever there wasn't one, people freaked out. It was insane. So yeah. But yeah, I don't know. People have this thing of, like, when content isn't where they want it to be, anything else that releases or happens, they're really annoyed with or upset. So most of the time they're not connected. Nothing like fighting next to a Sonic fursuit, a stripper that paid a good $100 on loot boxes for breast cosmetics, and just dudes in an actual anime show. That has been PSO2 since the very beginning. I'm not sure what game you've been playing, but that has always been the case. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that that is not just NGS. That is PSO2. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm not saying fursuits are horrible. I'm saying people make some really bad looking fursuits in NGS and look terrible. And those of y'all out there that are putting balloon booba on your butt, that does not make a butt, that makes boobs on your butt, and it's dumb. I think it looks dumb personally. That's just my opinion to matter, but whatever. I agree, it looks terrible. And also free to play game. Yes, you're gonna have premium features. I personally wish this game was buy to play with a subscription as normal, and then no other money is taken unless it's like something you can buy in like a shop or whatever for other cosmetics or something along those lines or whatever, like something extra. Sure, fine. I wish that were the case. It's not. It's free. It reaches a lot more people that way. The game's a lot more successful that way. MMOs, usually don't survive as being buy to play subscription based games. People just don't want to put time into it. They don't put money into it when there's a ton of other free options. So that's just the way these games go nowadays. Do I agree with it? No, I want it to be different. However, I do understand it. It makes sense. And sure, holy hell, this game is not worth your time anymore. Not when the big update is still underbaked, incoherent years after its release. It's been 3 years. I know that seems like a long time. In MMO world, it's not. Most MMOs get their expansions 2 years in between. We haven't had enough time for an MMO to get 2 expansions in most situations. Again, it seems like a long time. Unfortunately, it just isn't. I wish MMOs developed substantially faster with much more content, but in the way that MMOs work now in today's like information society, with streams, with YouTube videos, with MMOs like me that are telling you guys how to do everything, it always feels like there's not enough. There needs to be more. But that's an issue of MMOs today, not an issue of PSO2. Unfortunately, that's just how things are. Had this been 8 years down the line, 10 years down the line, I'd be like, yeah, dude, I'm with you. It's been way too long. But 3 years, I hate to say, is reasonable. And that the updates have not really been underbaked recently. They've actually been pretty pog. So, I mean, granted, this is from May. This wasn't with the most recent update, but like, still, updates have been pretty gas, dude. Actually, this is released right before a really gas update, which is hilarious. I understand how their meetings are going, but surely they must not care about the product they're delivering. It's really disappointing. This is someone who doesn't really understand the difference between a business portion and the development portion of a game. They're not the same thing. They're actually 2 completely different things. And the devs absolutely care about the game that they're building, but the business side is concerned with the money that they're making. So those 2 hands have to shake and come together. They're not always the same thing. They don't work. They work together, but they're not the same situation. So this is just a misunderstanding of how that whole process works. And then I do want to go over a few other things. So I didn't want to go into this one because this is a global player giving their review on the game, and this is something that a lot of players kind of feel the same with. But the reality is that we experienced the best version of PSO2. The best. It's not even close. Like, JP got a lot more collaborations that we missed out on, and they maybe got a weapon or 2 that we didn't get, and some cosmetics, but we got the best version. Like, we got the proper balancing, we got more content to be able to do in a reasonable manner with all the triggers we had access to. Like, we got the best version of the game, hands down, bar none. Cosmetics, you can argue that JP got some more, but like, of the actual game itself, we got it better than anyone else. We had it within a year. It had lightning fast updates. It had tons of content for us to go through. There was really never any content drought, because honestly, the longest content drought we had was maybe like a week or 2. And then there was something new coming around the horizon. There was always something to work on to do. So 100% agree. But that is not the MMO development cycle. That is not base PS2's development cycle. Just isn't. Never has been. Unfortunately for MMOs, probably never will be. Maybe a year from now, I'll be eating those words. There'll be an MMO that comes out that's just absolutely killing it in that sort of way. And you know what? I'm ready for it. But these things take time. I wish they didn't, but they do. Hopefully we'll get there one day. We'll see. So here's another one. This is from someone who played on the JP servers. I played on the Japanese servers and globally, roughly 10-year vet combined. His overall was a great MMO, but NGS update killed the gameplay and player base. It didn't. Player base is still actually pretty strong. So, no, looks good, but there does not matter if the gameplay has a major downgrade. There are some downgrades, yes, as we go along, but what we'll find is that it's about the same for the most part in a lot of cases, actually. But enough, at its current rate, NGS's bouncer is pretty much almost 1-to-1 what Utswell felt like for me when I played using Soaring Blades. It was about the exact same pace, so, and almost the exact same setup overall. I've not learned from MMOs that doing a split game like this just nukes the whole community. So the example I like to look at when I think of something like this is actually RuneScape. RuneScape released RuneScape 3, and those who are a fan of OSRS that hated RuneScape 3 felt so betrayed and abandoned at the fact that RuneScape OSRS just wasn't really a thing anymore for a while. Or RS wasn't really a thing for a while. OSRS came around and they made sure that they had access to it, and there was like combined and things like that. People wanted to play it, but this doesn't really split the player base. People who want to play base PS2 are going to play base PSO2. People who want to play NGS are going to play NGS. People who want to play something like PSU are going to find private servers to play it on because their current servers aren't available. People who want to play Phantasy Star Online, they're going to find private servers to play on that because their other servers aren't available. Players will play what they want to play. It's not that that's split. Forcing them into a game they don't want to play is not the way to do anything, under any circumstances, no matter how you look at it. New Genesis should not have released until more content and gameplay was smoothed out. This we can agree on, but this is like hindsight. You can argue this is the case for any MMO. For example, Final Fantasy XIV's 2.0 launch shouldn't have come out until they could sort out the issue with like server netcode that you weren't sitting with 200 ms all the time. Like innate baked in 200 ms all the time. So like there are a lot of things we could say in these situations. Yeah, now, but then we were like, yo, we'll play a beta until the original game releases itself fully, because we really just want to play this. This has been super fun. And we played with even less content than there was available at the time of release. So actually, funny enough, I remember saying the exact sentence, dude, if they just gave us a elevator from base PSO2 directly in NGS that we could jump into and play at any point in time that we wanted to play and just enjoy it as they're building it up, like honestly, most of us would. And I remember a resounding number of individuals, not only from my Twitch channel, but from YouTube, from other places I talked to, from other individuals I spoke to, all agreed the exact same thing. And then we got exactly that and people were upset. But you know, hey, what do I know, right? Should have had another year, at least another year of development testing. So no, yes and no, we should have gotten the game. We need to get the game because I promise you, players are always going to find out more than the dev team is going to find out, no matter how much testing is put into any game, ever. Doesn't matter. We will always find out more. Get the game to us quicker, we can iterate on it, we can give you feedback, and we can get the game to be a lot better than it was previously. Dev should have made more care to global PSO2 players for content and patches. I don't understand this. I think this is like more about the JP side getting more cosmetics things, because global had the absolute best experience. Like we had the best one. We didn't have to wait very long. We had all the proper balance. Like we talked about, like I mentioned earlier, like it was the best version of it. So I don't understand that personally, but maybe there's a disagreement there. If you're looking for a Phantasy Star MMO with a good community that has a lot of content, Google Phantasy Star Universe Clementine. It's a private server because the regular ones aren't available. And Phantasy Star Online Blueburst, also private server, regular ones aren't available. I agree with both of these 100%, but please understand you're going into a completely different game. The complaints that are actually as a part of this here exist going into these games. Gameplay is going to be downgraded pretty dramatically, actually. But you do have a ton of content, and there is a pretty solid community around these games because it is people that absolutely love them. The niche community is all that remains. It's not currently available for most people. So those who really love those games found a way to play them, and they're the ones that are still there playing it. And it is a lot of fun. So I do agree. Definitely check those games out. They're fantastic. But please, for the love of God, keep advocating for PSO2 if you want PSO2 to be good. I'm talking about base. If you want base to be amazing, to be inviting to players because it's still available to them, advocate for it. There should be a mission pass in base that gives you the content that you need, or gives you the items that you need to be able to build up your gear reasonably, like that was available when we were playing it actively. There should be a rotation of seasonal events, not just the lobby, but the actual events going. There should be just a reason for people to go back and play more. Maybe like adding in the idea of hardcore servers, of solo self-bound stuff. Like that would be fantastic. And it's something that I know Phantasy Star players would enjoy, but it's something that needs to be brought up as feedback overall, right? Like we need to talk about it. What I found from a lot of players that do love these old games is they've just given up. And it sucks to be beat down that much, so you feel like you're not listened to that much, that you've just given up and you don't want to do this anymore. Maybe because the way you provided feedback, you were yelling about it, people told you to shut up, stop yelling about something. They were within their right to tell you to shut up, stop yelling about it. But what they needed to tell you was stop yelling about it, talk about it, bring it up, bring back feedback in the Discord. If you're someone's like, yo, I brought back this feedback in the Discord for NGS and like it got, you know, suppressed or removed, or they said like this isn't the place for it, bring it to me. I would love to look into how to provide that feedback through the correct channels. I would 100% advocate for you guys. The thing is that I don't see the feedback being provided that way. I see people screaming about things in places that make absolutely no sense. You're yelling about base PSO2 in an NGS stream that's about showing off creative spaces. Or we're talking about in those comments of those same streams, like, yo, this is boring, we'd rather have this instead. Like, yeah, I know for your perspective, this is the way to do it, but it's like going to a McDonald's and being like, yo, your food sucks, you should be Burger King instead. Why are you in the drive-through telling someone this? It doesn't make any freaking sense. There's a time and a place, and that is neither the time nor the place for that sort of feedback. It doesn't mean you don't give feedback. It means the time and place needs to be there. And again, what I'm saying is I would be love to advocate for you guys. I'm someone who loved PSU. Absolutely. And it took a while for me to really like PSO2. I actually played PSO2 base and then quit because it wasn't PSU and I hated how a lot of the systems work back then. Came back to it, put more time into it, learned it, got more into the systems themselves. The game also got better and better over time, and it became one of my favorites. Just like I'm someone who played Final Fantasy 11, loved the crap out of that game. Played 14, hated it. Played 2.0, liked it a bit better, gave it more time, and eventually it's now built up into one of my favorite MMOs of all time, alongside of PSO2. Feedback is important, guys, and I'm telling you, please, please, please advocate for feedback. There is useless good and bad feedback. Nothing against this person here. Game needs more content. Good feedback. It's still useless. You didn't tell us anything. NGS killed the game, like literally. It didn't. This is useless. Like nothing was gained from here. These are 2 dots. You wanted to give positive scores. That's fine. Gave nothing. Good game. Honestly, if you're looking to have something to chill, level up to, have fun, that's it. There's definitely more to it that makes it a good game. This is useless good feedback. This doesn't tell us anything. Like, good game. Awesome. Like, it's on both sides. And again, nothing against those individual people. Sometimes you need to go ahead and just express your feeling on stuff, but understand that if you want something to be better, you want change, you want to advocate something to be positive, you have to bring that information in a way that it's going to be heard, or that you would even want to hear it. A lot of times people believe that just screaming about something forces someone to hear it. But a lot of times what it does is it forces them to find a way to make it stop. And sometimes that might be giving you what you want. And other times that could just be tuning you out completely. I don't want that to happen. Let me advocate for you guys, which is why I always tell you, provide feedback the right way. That way it's heard. And I can promise you it is being listened to. I mean, I always think it is, but it is being listened to. Just depends on how much of it you iterated on. Whew, there's a whole lot to go on through here. I'm going to scroll through some of these. That way you guys can at least see them. But I have read through a ton of these, and a lot of it's really, really good. And a lot of these are really great points from positive and negative. I mean, the original PS2 did literally everything better than NGS. Hard to disagree. Hard to disagree. By episode 6, it was fantastic, but it still was doing some things wrong. It actually also did some things exactly the same that NGS is doing, that NGS still has a problem with. So, hard to disagree. Game is good when you don't have someone yapping in your ear telling you it's not. Actually very true. This is the case of a lot of games, actually. Funny enough, if you play MMOs, you will always find the same argument. Devs don't play their game. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't care. So on and so forth. These are very common nothing responses that you will hear all the time when it comes to MMOs. And it is not specific to any one game. You hear about Final Fantasy 14 nowadays. It's insane. You can be a robot. Pog. Most in-depth character customization I've ever seen. Also Waifu Simulator. Very big agree. However, it also suffers from this. There's a lot of clipping. There's a lot of annoying body physics and things of that sort. People make disgusting looking, crazy looking characters. And some people just straight up make porn. So that's what it is. Casino over game based. True. Because I could level up from 1 to 70 in 4 days. Agreed. Good and bad. Players really hated the fact that leveling took super long, and they've changed this pretty dramatically. To the point I've even given the feedback I've given the criticism that leveling almost feels like just a numbers bump. It doesn't really actually do anything. It's not exciting enough. So hopefully this gives the idea that there is both types. And the reading reviews is actually pretty fun. I mean, I literally have friends that review the game that don't play, or that give positive reviews that don't play, and then give negative reviews that do. So it is all over. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, be kind to one another. Hopefully this comes across the way I'm looking for. And the idea here is that feedback is important, and mix is interesting. I figured these would be flipped. Anyway, take care, my friends. Peace out.